I made a decision. I was quitting my job and I was doing this. I met Jess on a shoot. I was watching her do brows. We were just talking about like this product that needed to happen. I was like, I wonder if Jess wants to launch a business.
Yeah.
And I sent her an email like, hey, really random. I know we were talking about this idea the other day. Do you want to start a business? No worries if not.
No worries if not. Kiss.
And I was like, well, this is just a disaster. We're launching a product and we rebranded the company in a pandemic and it just blew up. We couldn't even get the stock. The morning it got announced, I got like emails of all of our retailers. We had about like £500,000 of purchase orders cancelled within 2 hours.
So I'm just going to get straight into it.
Yeah, fine. I feel like we're in the floor now
already
anyway.
going.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you so much for having me.
For people listening, we've had a bit of a scheduling mix-up this morning,
That's not good.
and Jenna has had to rush. She has had to rush to get here, and so we're going kind of straight into this. But I've been so excited for this podcast episode because I feel like we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And you've just done absolutely incredibly. It's been so great to watch, and I can't wait to kind of dive into it. So for people who either don't know you or kind of haven't seen your entire career trajectory, could you just give us like a little whistle-stop tour of your career from beginning to now?
Definitely. So I went to Manchester Met, studied international fashion marketing. On my placement year, I went to New York, worked at Hugo Boss in the marketing department.
Amazing.
Came back, finished uni, went to London, went down a product development route, worked for Christopher Rayburn, a menswear designer in product development, then went to Amelia Wickstead, doing like production development, kind of the whole bit there, and then moved to Burberry, product developer. And then 2016, I quit to have a fun summer, and that was then the Gypsy-Shrine. And then fast forward 7 years.
We sound like we have some similarities.
Yeah.
Like
It's meant to be a bit of fun.
summer ends up starting a business.
Yeah, and then, did the Gypsy-Shrine 2016, rebranded 2019 to Shrine, and then 2020 launched REFY with Jess. So
Amazing. God, you are very concise. You said you've got word vomit. You've not got word vomit at all. That was the most concise thing I've ever heard in my life.
I did actually practice that one. I need to...
You're like in the mirror this morning. And then
yeah, everything's been robotic. No, I'm joking.
No, I absolutely love that. So let's go back to, so at the beginning, was your dream to be in, was it kind of the fashion side in particular?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, you get thrown into university so soon. I mean, I was youngest in the year, so what, 19? No, not even, like 16 when you choose, what do you even choose? 16 when you choose what you want to go and do, or 17?
Yeah.
You choose what you want to do at
17.
uni, and I was like, I had no idea, just fashion, do you know what I mean? And I thought, oh, I'll go and do that. Did that at uni, liked it. And I did want to go down the fashion route, and I love that side of things. And then I went into like product development. I was like, oh, this is cool, like making stuff. So I think that was kind of my calling, like the product development side of things. I love being in fashion. I love being at the small businesses though. I love being at Christopher Rayburn. I love being at Amelia Wickstead. You feel you're so important and so needed within that company. And then I went to a big business, and of course you can't operate as a big business like that. And I just didn't have the same passion.
It's so funny because we often have people joining Tala, and it's what people say when they've kind of come from those bigger businesses that have obviously originally, I guess, been part of their like dream jobs to get into those places, coming to somewhere smaller where you not only like mean a lot and like all of that, it's the amount of work you put in versus the reward you get is really visibly seen, which like a lot of people have kind of said within their first few weeks. They're like, oh, it's crazy, like I do something and then I actually see it. Which actually obviously in a bigger company isn't necessarily always the case.
Definitely. And I don't get me wrong, big companies are definitely for some people and small companies are definitely for other people. I think it just completely depends on what you like.
Yeah,
and
completely agree.
We've had people come, they're like, this isn't the right place for me. And I'm like, yeah, you probably need to be at a big corporation that has got it all sorted, because we're still scrambling, we're still figuring it out. And unless you're adaptive to change and willing to get your like stuck into it, then it isn't the right place for you. And that is fine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think people so worry about not leaving a job, and that it's like not every place is going to be the right place for you.
I think also what we don't realize is like just how many jobs and types of companies there are out there. Like when you're at school, you think there's like 5 possible jobs that you could be in, and then actually getting into the workforce, you're like, oh my god, there's so much and so many different types of the exact same job that can kind of play to your strengths as well. So from when you kind of first went into fashion, from the time that you started Shrine, how long was that?
about 4 years, 3 years,
And
3-4 years.
And so that fun summer, you'd taken time off, was that just to be able to have a bit of a break, go travelling?
No, that was to start the Gypsy-Shrine. So it was all planned, it was all ready to go, but I didn't think it would actually become a business. I was like, I'm literally going to do some festivals, literally have some fun, and then I'll get a real job again in September. That was like my plan. And then it was just the year where Instagram was just starting. It was like what's happening with TikTok now was happening with Instagram back then. It was just, you were going viral. People just, you were waking up and we had like 20, 30,000 likes on pictures. And I was like, whoa, I didn't we weren't even thinking about content. Content wasn't even a thing. You were just like taking a picture and posting it and you were like, oh, people love this. And then we started selling the jewels. Like I started designing all that all-in-one jewel. And that was really cool because that wasn't really out at the time. And I'd found a factory and then I started working with brands because like Selfridges, Topshop, Pretty Little Thing, all these brands I wanted to stock the product. And then just before I knew it, it was like, okay, this is happening. Like, could be something.
I remember seeing it absolutely blow up. And it was kind of in those early days, it must have been like, it was when I was just, I guess, starting out, and obviously was using Instagram as a main tool. And I remember like me and all of my friends seeing it just like completely blow up, which is so, so cool. And what made you, I guess, at that point, where do you think that entrepreneurial drive kind of came from? In terms of, you know, just thinking, I'm going to stop my current job, start a new business, and then get back into work and after the summer.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, looking back now, nothing fazed me back then. Like, I literally, and I still do it now, I don't ponder on if I have an idea, I make it happen within a second.
Yeah.
Like, my partner would be like, do you want to think about this? I'm like, no, we're doing it, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I think I was just like, I made a decision. I was quitting my job and I was doing this, and if it didn't work, I'd get another job. Like, and it was just, I just didn't make it any bigger than that. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even tell my mum. I remember I rang my mum in Australia. I was like, by the way, I've quit my job. She was like, you've ruined your life. I was like, a bit extreme. But I probably haven't. But I was like, I can't just get another job. She was like, you used to get free dinners. You've ruined your life. So you used to get free dinners at Burberry. And she was like, to her, that was like the ultimate. I was like, but it just shows that a free dinner doesn't always make you buzzing about your job. So there's so many other factors.
But it is such a bold move. And I think that one of the kind of beautiful things about being young and also having not gone into entrepreneurship for, I think a lot of entrepreneurs looking back do just say like one of their biggest strengths was their naivety and just being like, honestly, if I knew about all of the obstacles after this point, then I probably would have given it like more thought, but actually just being like, why wouldn't I try? Like, as in, literally just as simple as that, taking the fear away and just being like, yeah, I'm going to try. If not, I'm going to come back in a few months.
Definitely. And I think the unknown, I actually listened to this on a podcast the other week, and it was saying the unknown is so powerful, and it's so true. It's like, not knowing how to do things, you can do anything. Like, everything is a limit. Like, now I know quite a lot. So I'm like, that takes 6 months, that takes a year. Before, like, we can make it happen tomorrow.
Right.
And that is fine. Yeah. Like, we could do a pop-up shop next week. Yeah, let's figure it out. Now it's like, okay, like, there's a big process. You have to do all this. It's like, now we know the process. It strips the fun a little bit. When you don't know, you can just be like, yeah, we can get that celebrity to use it. I'll DM her. Yeah. And you're like, you just make it happen. Like, you don't know, the unknown is powerful. So I think don't worry about knowing everything, because the less you know is actually good, because you're a bit naive, and you need naivety. Do you know what I mean? You need naivety to just be like, I can do it, I'll figure it out. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And that the original idea for Shrine, or the Gypsy-Shrine as it was at the time, what was that when you kind of thought, oh, I'm going to go and do these festivals? Was it supplying glitter? Was it doing the artistry?
Yeah, it was literally just painting people. Like, I used to do body painting on the side, and that was kind of my passion. I did like the World Body Paint Championships in Austria. I didn't actually compete there, but I was just there, and I saw it all, and I remember just being like, I love this. When I was in New York, I used to work for an artist on an evening at this body painting place, and I remember just thinking like, how do I make this my life? And that was kind of my goal. But yeah, there was no plan with the Gypsy-Shrine. There was no brand, there was no purpose. There was no plan. There was nothing. It was just like, I'm having fun. Yeah. And that's it.
Which is so cool. How great for that to turn into something so, incredible. Definitely. Now. And then it was a few years from that point, is that right, until it got up to the kind of pandemic point, which is probably, I assume, quite terrifying for you as a festival kind of supplier. Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, we hadn't launched REFY yet. We're in the process of starting to look at launching REFY. But we hadn't launched it. I had a team. We were starting to hire people for the potential launch of REFY 6 months down the line. And then I got a call. I was watching the news one day. I actually think I had COVID myself because I was off for a week and I was just so ill. And I was just watching the news and I was like texting the girls at work like, oh my God, this is crazy. And they're like, yeah, no, it's not a big deal. Because like when you watch the news, you absorb it, don't you? And then the morning it got announced, I got like emails of all of our retailers. We had about like £500,000 of purchase orders cancelled within 2 hours. Like, we had the stock there, it was ready to go. That was the money that was going to kind of ride us through the summer, pay for all of our staff, pay for the business. Do you know what I mean? Like, wholesale for us was a big driver. .com is also a driver, but like wholesale was massive. And also just, you guarantee that money, you know what you can do in terms of infrastructure and everything. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, we're FC UK.
Yeah.
I was literally like, what do we do? And I remember just like being like, God, I've got staff here I need to protect. I was like, you could only furlough people if they'd been within the company 6 months. Half my staff had only just probably started in the last 3 months. So, and I was like, I'm not letting anyone go. I was like, we'll figure this out together.
Yeah.
We ended up reducing everyone's salaries, like flat 20% across the board. I was like, if I do this, guys, we are in it together. We all get to stay. Everyone was really supportive. Everyone went for it. And luckily, I mean, insane, a month after we launched Drop It. And I was like, well, this is just a disaster. We launched a product and we rebranded the company in a pandemic. And it just blew up. Like
because it was hair dye, is that right?
Yeah, it was like we just
launched
hair dye.
Which is a place to be in. Was that already the plan before the pandemic came?
Yeah, but it was just going to be like another little product that
someone was looking out for you.
Yeah, that was my Annie up there, definitely. I was like, oh my God. And yeah, I mean, when we first launched it, the pandemic, I think it was mostly in the first few weeks, we sold like 3 pink, 2 purple. Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, like this will just be a little back burner product. Right. And then like we were selling 500 pink, 1,000 purple. And it was just like, what is happening? Like we couldn't even get the stock. And it was just incredible. Like to think that we almost could have walked away from the business.
Right.
And to be honest, the business would have been shut down if it wasn't for Drop It. And then we just did a complete rebrand. We're like, here's the future. Let's actually build a proper strategy. Let's go for it.
That's wild. And I feel like when you look back at those things, it's kind of like, like that really happened. And we actually managed to kind of like get through that and to have something in your back pocket, I guess, that was you were just able to really lean into is just, I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's a huge amount of credit to you as well for diversifying even before that point. But I can imagine that moment where you started watching the news and kind of having those purchase orders cancelled. That must have just been absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I remember. I think there's a picture. I think I even put like a cry for help for my story. Like, I don't know if I remember being in tears. Like, what do we even do? And then luckily, one of the girls that I knew through Pretty Little Thing, she like must have seen my story and just was like, "We're not cancelling it. We're still gonna stick by you." And I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
So she really helped. But it was just absolutely insane that we could have just shut down overnight. Like, and that is the risk. You know, that's a risk you're running. Whenever you've got a business, like something could happen, you could shut down overnight, and it's like petrifying.
And it's all well and good, everyone being like, oh, diversify, but actually, like with a product business, you don't want to be diversifying too much. Like you don't want to diversify so that if any world thing happened, you'd be fine, because also then you don't have the amount of focus that you really need as a business to be able to have, you know, your core mission and your why and all of those things for like the reason people come to you. But obviously having that in mind, and it's obviously a product that makes sense with the business as well, is just, I mean, just so great. Like thank God you kind of had that. And from that point, how did you manage to keep up with the demand of this sudden surge, I guess, through lockdown? I assume it was people on TikTok and stuff using it. Do you know, or do you kind of know where that hair dye boost kind of came from?
Yeah, I think it was just that trend of I'm at home, the hairdresser's short, we'll just do it all and figure it all out. I mean, I didn't even have merchandise at the time. Do you know what I mean? We were just ordering stock and being like, yeah, 5,000 looks good, sick. And then we'd be like, oh, there's no box left. We need to order more stock.
It's so funny because I feel like I at least look at so many businesses online and I'm like, God, they have it so together. And every single founder or like CEO I ever talk to is always like, oh yeah, we haven't quite figured that out. Yeah. Or like there's like I've talked to people with, you know, billion-dollar companies, and they're like, yeah, we really haven't worked that one out yet. And you're like, everyone's business behind the scene is just an absolute shit show. But it's like the different types of shit shows, and everyone's pushing through it. And actually, I feel like entrepreneurship, it always has to be a kind of semi-shit show, because you're evolving and moving that quickly that it needs to, that's the way you kind of keep it afloat and keep making the right decisions.
Definitely. I mean, you've always been in the same situation. Every day you're just fixing a different problem. Like, it's like, today I'm fixing this problem, then that will lead to another problem. It's like you're just constantly evolving. Exactly. It's like every day's different.
Yeah, I do. There was actually, have you been watching the Kardashians on Disney?
I haven't, no.
So real tangent. But I was watching that the other day, the second episode, and Kendall goes to get a brain scan, and they're like, oh, you can see this is where you're like stressed, and this is like all of this. And I was like, I'm imagining me getting this brain scan, and I'm like, apparently you can see the areas of your brain where it's like super stressed, and the amount of like stress you have in your life, and the amount like it kind of like goes up and down and all of this. And I was like, I feel like that would not look very good for any business owner, like just going in there, because like, as you say, every single day it's another thing that pops up, and you're just like, how do I deal with this one? And every time you think it's going to be less bad next time, and then it happens, and you're like, cool.
Yeah, there's no handbook, and everything is completely different as well. Like everything just changes and evolves. You know what I mean? How you do something, especially with REFY now, like, oh my God, like how we operate is not how we operated a year ago. It's definitely not how we operated 3 years ago. And it's like, it's probably not how we're going to operate in a year's time. Like, we just constantly like, okay, we need to implement this process. Right, we need to now do this. Okay, we haven't thought of this. Right, now we need to think of this. And it's like, you could just go in an absolute rabbit hole with it.
And also, good people come in and they have great systems from previous places they've worked and all of that. And I find each time someone comes in, they go, actually, this is the way we do it. And you're like, how have we been doing it any other way for all of this time? But you just do, and you evolve at the rate that you can evolve. And I feel like that's one of the parts of it. So when you decided to rebrand Shrine, what was the decision-making process behind that? Was that scary? I can imagine having a business for a good few years before that, and then deciding to change that must have been a little terrifying.
Yeah, so I think, again, because when I started the Gypsy-Shrine, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, that's for real. I had no clue. I was just like figuring this out, and I just had a load of adrenaline, and there was no plan. There was nothing. And then I knew it was trend. You know what I mean? I knew that glitter and face jewels wasn't going to last forever. And I also knew it wasn't great for the planet. And I think I didn't know that when I first started it, but I started to realize that through like the customer being like, hey, do you know this isn't good? And I was like, God, actually I'm starting something that isn't that good there. I was like, I want to be better. Like, we're all humans, we learn as we go. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to do, if I'm going to have this brand, it shouldn't just be to make money, it should to do something with purpose. So that's when I went down the hair dye route, because it isn't just hair dye, it's all about kind of eliminating waste in hair care. Like, one of our drop bottles is the equivalent of like 10 to even 20 single-use plastic bottles on the shelf from other brands. So I was like, right. So I found the purpose, and I think that's what really helped me understand brand, understand purpose, and understand how to actually do this and set this up properly. And then that was like, then it all just kind of made sense from there. Like, the year before, don't get me wrong, we tried to diversify. We did fashion, we did clipping hair extensions, we had harnesses, we had just random stuff, and it just didn't work. Like, our profits went down, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, well, I think that's what's really interesting, because you look at a business at any time, and you look at it at the end goal of the current time. So if someone looked at REFY now or Shrine now, you look at it and you think, wow, what a linear journey. And you actually forget all of those things along the way that you would have tried. I mean, there's so many things that we tried with Tala and Shreddy as well that were just like, that just didn't work. The customer just didn't like, and we learned and we moved on and we dealt with that. But and I feel like that's one of the most important things, just like constant experimentation and testing and learning, because it's always the ones where you're like, I remember there was this collection a few years ago where I was like, yeah, it's good, but it's not as good as what we need at the moment. And it launched, and everyone like absolutely loved it. And I considered my superpower kind of like knowing what the customer will want and knowing what products are going to sell out, etc., etc. And I just like got it completely wrong. And I was just like, this is literally why we keep experimenting, because you never know when you're going to strike gold.
Definitely. Every collection we launch, especially with REFY recently, and Jess is exactly the same. Our product, head of product kills us. We both have a mental breakdown beforehand. We're like, we just don't think we should do it. We just don't think we should do it. I don't think it's right. And you're just like, you joke, we've been doing this for 3 years. Yeah. You loved it until yesterday, and you're about to launch tomorrow. Let's not do it.
Please, we don't really
And then people love it.
Yeah. And on that topic, how did the REFY partnership come about?
Yeah, so REFY was actually meant to be a small side business on Shrine.
Right.
Yeah, it was never meant to be what it became. I met Jess on a shoot. I was watching her do brows and I was like, these look insane, but what the hell is she doing? She had like 10 products and I was like, there's just a lot going on. And then we were just talking about it and we were just talking about like this product that needed to happen. And then we were just like, all right, see you later. And then the next day I was in the studio and I was just like messing around and I was like, I found this brush and I was like, this is the product we need and it needs to look like this. And then I just took it to Danielle and I was like, can you make this? And she's like, what is this, Jenna?
What are you doing?
Can you make this?
I need to do my brows. Make me this
And
product.
she's like, what are you on about? I was like, I don't know, just see if you can make it. Because I think something cool could happen. I was like, we definitely can't launch that with Shrine. And it's me and Jess have just been talking about it. And I was like, I wonder if Jess wants to launch a business. And I was like, right, I'm going to put together this massive presentation. I'm going to pitch it into her. And I just thought, I'm just going to email her.
Yeah.
And I sent her an email like, hey, really random. I know we were talking about this idea the other day. I've actually put it to my head of product. And do you think she could do it? Do you want to start a business? No worries if not.
No worries if not. Kiss.
Yeah. And then she was like, actually, yeah, I would like to. I was like, let's chat. And it just kind of evolved. And again, the pandemic really helped us in that sense because we had a bit of branding and branding is one of those things that when you're starting a business until now, when I realised how important it is, it's something that you're like, I'll do later. I need to get this product and I need to set up my website and I need to do all this. And you actually, your branding's what's going to blow you up. And the mission, the purpose, everything why you're doing it is the reason. And we didn't have that. We just had this brow sculpt where we're like, this is sick.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to make some money. This is sick. And then the pandemic happened and we're like, we just looked at everything. We're like, what are we doing here? Like, this actually could be, we could make this big. Like, we could turn this into a brand. We could actually do something completely different to what other people are doing in the industry. Again, very simple, like what you've just said. It was like, there's all these incredible beauty brands, but for a non-makeup artist, I'm like, what do I do? How long have I got it? Oh, no, I don't. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, there's nothing for the girl, the guy who just wants to do it, look like they've had their makeup done, but they did it in like 5 seconds. And it was, I mean, this morning, I mean, I'm not saying my makeup looks brilliant, but I did it in 3 minutes. And I was in a rush, but I could. And I was like, everything's just so simple to use and it's like, it's quick, but it creates good effects. And I was like, that's what we created here.
I love that so much, and I think we have a lot to talk about within that. I think, first of all, there's a really big lesson in there in terms of like listening to your gut when a product or like brand or thing is just like not quite there yet. I feel like knowing as an entrepreneur that perfectionism is not possible, like you can't be a perfectionist as a business owner, otherwise you'll literally never get anything out there. But you can have really high standards and you need to have really high standards. And every time there's been a gut feeling that I'm like, I just don't like the packaging, or I just don't like the way, you know, the main sentence we're marketing it with, or like any of those things. Anytime I've like not listened to that after it, I've just been like, why did I not just like sit down? It would have been an uncomfortable meeting, me being like, surprise, we're going back to square one. But like, it's so important. It usually takes less time than you think. And I don't think there's ever a time I've like looked back and regretted kind of putting that extra effort in. But I also think on top of that, in terms of the brand mission of REFY as a whole, I think anyone who's seen REFY on social media, which is probably everyone who's listening to this, I think can probably vouch for just how much clarity there is around what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think it is so, I think it's so of the time in the way people consume social media as well. Like with the rise of video content and the rise of like authenticity and just wanting like solution-based stuff, I think it really, 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 it just really works. You don't need to tell me to tell you that. You can see from all the sales and all of the like hype on socials. But no, I just think it's kind of been so exciting to watch. And I'm sure you very much felt that as well. Right at the beginning, what made you think that you, and clearly we were right, but what made you believe that you could take on such a big task?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have done this if it was my first business, because
right,
that would have been a disaster. The only reason I did take it on is because we literally had the processes, we had the people, and we could do it. Do you know what I mean? I would not have taken it on if I was like, hey, Jess, do you want to start a business? But we need to like get people, we need to do everything, and I've never actually done this before, so I don't actually know what I'm doing. I was like, I kind of get now what I'm doing a little bit, so at least we've got something.
Yeah.
You use your skills, I use my skills, we bring it together. It's something cool could happen. I just backed ourselves.
Yeah.
I just think, there's things that like I would have changed doing it again, but then I just think you just don't know what's going to happen. Like it might have been a flop.
Yeah.
And it might have been like, okay, that didn't work. Let's keep going. Let's try something else. But it did just blow up overnight, and we're a bit like, okay. And I think my biggest regret is not hiring more people sooner.
Right.
But again, you'll know when you first start. How can you? Because
you wouldn't have known.
it could be a flash in the pan. Do you know what I mean? It could have been like great
and then you've got all these people's mortgages relying on you.
Exactly. So you just don't know. You learn and you go and you just figure it out each day, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obviously a huge task you take on. I think that when we look at influencer businesses, I think there is very much this preconception that it's going to be really easy because the demand to a certain extent is going to be there. And I think obviously I'll be the first person to say that like absolutely that contributes to it, and that is a great start. But what that also means is you need to start the business seamlessly at a point where there are potentially tens of thousands of orders, and being able to go from 0 to tens of thousands you can't have a trial run of 10,000 orders just to see if they work. You need to be able to start something as a well-oiled machine with no ability to test it beyond a certain extent. And like, that is a huge undertaking. Not only not knowing how much it would blow up, but also just, there are going to be an initial amount of people who believe in Jess and kind of believe in the creative and are like, yeah, cool, I can, especially with such a good price point as well, there are going to be people who so for you to be able to start that and have it operating so well, is such a testament to your work.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you say so well,
it will always feel like a shit show from the inside, though.
But
that's all that matters.
Exactly, but there's been times where we'd literally be, desks would be turned into packing stations. We'd be like, guys, stop working, whatever you're working on. Like, we'd literally be like, right, we've got to we'd be competitions ourselves on how fast we could make a packing box. Do you know what I mean? I'm like,
that's so
do you know what I mean? We put the timer on and be like, you would. And he'd be like, how many orders to go? And it was just like, but everyone that started with REFY back in the early days were there for that. And we've got beautiful offices now, and it's only taken 2 years, but they saw the small office, they saw the packing the boxes and everything. Like it's, you just figure it out, don't you? And you make it happen. Yeah, no,
100%. And so you decide, what was the timeline from you deciding or pitching it to Jess to launch and then actually getting to kind of the launch?
Probably it's 2 years.
Wow. Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the brow sculpt development, it was like, I mean, in the beauty industry, a lot of people, you can benchmark. So like, that's why people rip people off, because they'll be like, hey, make this product. And then they just benchmark it. We were benchmarking off nothing. Do you know what I mean? We were building a formula, and that's what we do with all of our products. We start from like a concept. We never benchmark. And it just takes so long, because you're like, this is not what I wanted, but you're not a scientist. So it's like, you try and tell someone how to do it, and you're like, oh no, start again. Yeah. So we had about 100 samples on the brow sculpt. And at one point I was like, this isn't going to work. Yeah. Like, and then one day I just got a sample on my desk, and I was like, this is it.
It's always the way it works though, isn't it? I remember like some of my first samples, and like I was just trying to ask the factory to make a fucking t-shirt, like a t-shirt, and there were about 10 samples, and like they were coming back and it would be like a fitted body and then like oversized t-shirt arms, and I was like, something's gone like terribly wrong here. But also like I have no experience in fashion. I'm not a designer, I'm not a garment tech, I'm not like so I'd kind of go back and I'd be like, find a t-shirt in your cupboard, just like a normal sized t-shirt. This is what we want. Like it's the frustration of going back and forth with factories at the beginning when you have nothing to benchmark off of, and you're really trying to make like I can imagine it so many times it would have been so tempting to just be like, right, just make some quote unquote normal makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Like this would be so much easier if we were just trying to be like, here's some products, which one do you want? We're like, oh yeah, them 3, fine. Like, happy days. But we try and do stuff that doesn't exist, and then it's,
but you reap the rewards as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can tell that it's very much this, the idea that I've got from REFY through like consuming the content and seeing it online and everything is very much this solutions-based, these solutions-based products. So selling the end use rather than like selling a product in itself, which I feel like works so well on social media at the moment, just kind of being able to be like, the brow is what it sells you rather than like the individual product and saying kind of like use it how you want. Of course everyone's going to use it how they want, but just being able to be like, this is the blueprint, adapt as you want, which is really, really, really clever. From the success of the brow sculpt originally, how had you already got your next product in the works?
Kind of, but not kind of. We had ideas, but again, we didn't know if this was going to be anything.
Right. So we didn't know whether to invest.
Were just like, we'd been working on the summer skin collection alongside the brows for the 2 years, but then after that, we were like, oh, okay, right, this is actually going to happen, right? We need a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Now we've got product for the next 5 years. It's mad, but we didn't have it right, and that's why we didn't launch anything from June when we launched Summer Skin to our lips, because we just couldn't get lips right. It took us 2.5 years of lip stuff because it just wasn't working. We were like,
oh my God, insane. When was lips launched?
It launched in February, so we almost went about 10 months without a launch.
Right.
And again, to a brand, that's like, what you're doing. But for us, it's like, we're not chasing the cash, and I think that's why REFY is successful. We don't chase cash, we chase brand and purpose. Like, we'd rather deliver a product that people are like, okay, even if it's just one product a year.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we do, and I think that's why it works. Where I think on Shrine that year, when I went just wild and was like, we need to make this work, we don't know what we do, and I was just bringing out product left, right and centre, and nothing was selling. It's like, I think you have to bring out product all the time to like grow and scale, and it's like, you actually don't if that's not what you want to do. So I think, less is definitely more for us.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I can imagine also when you'd got to that point where you'd had brow sculpt and summer skin in quite quick succession, I can imagine it probably got quite terrifying, being like, when's our next product? And definitely. If we're all in on this lips and it's not quite working yet, how do we get to that stage?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had no backup plan. So like now, we've always got a bit of a backup plan.
Yeah, you can pull another product forward.
Yeah, but we were literally like, well, what should we do? We were like, don't know. We literally just need to make this work. And we obviously did. And well, the incredible product team and Danielle and the guys did. And like, they got it right, but it just took so long. And I just think you just never know how long a product is going to take, because like you saying, you think you've sent off the brief, you've got it right, and then you get it back and you're like, what is this? This is just completely off. Like, it's nowhere near. It's like, start again. So you're starting again over and over and over again. And even just like the factories take 4 weeks for a formula. So they could be even wrong by the time it touches and you've lost 4 weeks. So it's just a ongoing battle, I think, with product to kind of get it to a level you're happy with.
And how did the first ever launch go comparative to what you expected?
Yeah, it did really well. I think what the craziest launch for us was when everyone got the product and was like, oh, okay, this actually is really good.
Yeah.
And then we sold out completely. It was our relaunch where we were like, what just happened? Like, what just happened? We were out of stock for like 2 months. We put the product back in stock and it was just like, whoa, what is going on? Like, people went crazy for it. And I was just like, yeah, we were not prepared for that.
Yeah. But that's also a testament to how much of a not just quote unquote influencer business based on people buying because Jess is saying this is great. It's people, you know, maybe being aware of the product first of all, at least at the beginning stages. I would say, you know, there's a huge, I see REFY everywhere, whether it's with Jess or not now. But in terms of kind of being able to go from, you know, an initial amount purchasing something, which will be the early adopters, the, you know, the fans, the people who see the amazing marketing, all of this, and being able to try the product and then come back and be like, I need 10 more, or like, I've told all of my friends and now they're all coming to purchase, just shows how different it is creating a influencer business or something that started as an influencer business that isn't just about the influencer. I think with all of this rise of celebrity skincare lines, all of these different kind of beauty lines that every single celebrity seems to have, the ones you can tell are going to do really well is it's like almost a coincidence that it happens to be an influencer line. It's a great brand and product regardless. And I think when it's kind of obviously not, when it's one of those things that's like, you know, if X% of their following bought it, great. But like, are they going to repeat in the same way? Have we made the same investment into like brand and actual efficacy of the product and all of these things? And you can really tell with REFY that you've spent so much time, like whether, no matter how people found out about it, it's clearly an incredible product and brand, and there's something they can buy into, and that kind of dependent, like no matter what, which is obviously always the aim when kind of starting from that standpoint.
Definitely. And I feel like Jess as well, and I'm not sure how you're obviously heavily involved in yours as well. It's like you can tell the brands where they're not involved.
Yeah,
like
where it's a face situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes REFY as well so different. It's like, I thought I was a massive perfectionist, and I met Jess. I'm like, you joke? Like, I'm like, we're ready to sign this off. She's like, no, we need to change this. And I'm like, I didn't even notice that. And I was like, I thought I was crazy. I was like, so she is like literally putting her stamp and standard, which is so premium, on everything. So like, if she's not happy with it, it's not going anywhere. And I think people do follow Jess for that level of like her style and everything. It's lovely to see it. And I think, you know, you're getting that standard, and I think that's what you obviously do with your brand. And I think you can just tell when people are in it and making it to their standard.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's one of those things where everyone can use a certain amount of marketing, but the actual like multiplier effect on the demand of that marketing based on like how much concentration there's been on brand and product, and you can really tell when it's, you know, people in a back room making something and then they're stamping it on their page. It's so clearly not that, and it's so, you know, the synergy between Jess and the product and the brand and all of these things has just been executed so well. If you could do it all again from that initial stage, what are the main things that you would do differently, if anything?
God, what would I do differently? I think the people piece, I think I massively overstretched the team. I mean, this team is still overstretched, but we're fixing it, and we're working to hire more staff. But like back then, I'd have like the creative trying to do customer service on social, and just like, I mean, I was doing the customer service. I was waking up we had like one time where people were just going really wild on our customer service, and I was waking up at 5 a.m. to check the customer service on Instagram in case people had started going crazy or something. And it was just like, okay, we could have just hired more customer service people. Like, you just almost think you don't need it, and then you're like, no, this is crazy, we definitely need it. So I think just a bit better infrastructure, definitely. Knowing that it was going to be this big, which you don't know, but just if like I always think now, if I'm about to start another company, which I'm not,
just for clarification,
if I was going to, I would have my infrastructure not perfect, but as good as it could be, so that it's ready for when it scales and not trying to scramble. And I think we're just getting to a stage now where we're getting it solid, and it's 2 years, where I'd love to have just been like, maybe it's got financial backing and being able to build a team, so it's like we're ready to run type thing, instead of we're running, jump on board.
But at the same time, it's always kind of, grass is always greener, isn't it? And like hindsight is 2020, all of those types of things. But like, also, if you'd given away equity at the beginning to get like a little bit of financial backing, like they would have had a piece of this pie that's like fucking huge now, and like you deserve, like obviously that would have been still kind of deserving from an investment point of view, but it's like you have done so well self-funded that even if you look back and go like, I wish we just had a little bit more to like hire a few more people, I can also see why it's worked so well that you've done it how it is. So it's really easy always, I guess, to look back and be like, oh, should have done this, but I guess wouldn't have known. It's so funny you saying that about the like customer service thing. I remember probably similar thing, you know, that like wake up in the middle of the night and be like, you just have like this thought and you're like, what if someone's like just like everyone's going mad about this? And I just remember this, like when Tala really started to blow up, I remember any time I was like, you know, those times where you just like can't check your phone, like if I was like stupid things, like I was getting my lashes done, or like I was in a, you know, like meeting where I didn't have my phone, or like a doctor's appointment, or like a massage, like literally anything where you literally can't can't use your phone. Always like halfway through it, I'd be like, oh my God, like something's gonna have happened. Like something's gonna have happened, and I'm gonna come out of this like, fuck. It's so funny when you look back at those times and you're like, God, it's like living completely on edge at all
literally.
times.
I mean, we had one time, and I remember I was in Aldi car park, and I was just having a breakdown because someone was just being so mean on customer service to me, and I was like, I think I hadn't slept. We were just as we were launching, I was just like, I can't cope with this. And that was the bit that would break me, that person on customer service. I was like,
this is the end.
Literally, I was like, this is it. I'm in Aldi car
someone
park.
Who doesn't want them.
I'm done.
That's so funny. And like looking back at all of those things, it's like, how I often look back at those things, it's like, how did I even like live through this point? Like it seems like very insane that I would have had to you know, that I kind of managed to make it through that. So since that inception point, it's been 3 and a bit years, is that right?
Since what?
Since you launched.
REFY?
Yeah.
No, we literally 2 years next week.
Oh, okay. So so 2 years next week, and you are a team of 50, is that right?
Yeah, just under 50, yeah.
That is insane. How have you known, is that REFY and SHRINE separately?
That's together, so it's about, well, most people some people are split, we are separating them out now, so it's, about 40, 50, yeah.
Incredible. And how did you know what the right hires were at the right time?
Yeah, I think this is a really, really good topic, because I do feel like it's a question I get asked a lot, like, how do you know what to hire? And I think what's really important is knowing the level of your business and what that business needs at that level.
Right.
Like when you're first starting out, you don't need 5 seniors that are specialists. You need one person who can graft and do it all, and just like literally throw the hands in, be on customer service, be organising a contract with a massive retailer, and just being like your sounding board too. Like you need that person that is willing to just get the hands dirty. Then when you start getting bigger, you're like, okay, we can't all run like this, because then you've got 5-10 people that are all a bit entrepreneurial and very generalist, and everyone's just a bit like, oh, I'll get involved with that, I'll do a bit of this, and it works for a certain point, but then you're like, no, we need some structure now. So I think you just understand the level you're at, and then being like, okay, now we're at a level that we want to get to this level, what do we need for this? And what we do is we build out kind of our structure depending on what our goal is. So our goal is to be a global beauty brand that focuses on destination retail, but then obviously having a really strong online presence as well. So it's like, then we build our structure. What do we need? Okay, we need a specialist in retail. We need a specialist in .com. We need a specialist in product. We need a specialist in brand. We need a specialist in finance and operations. We need a specialist in sales. So it's like, we need these specialists, and then we bring them in, and then they then build out their team. So I used to get so involved in all the details. Someone would be hiring, I'd be like, do you think they should do this? Do you think I should do that? And now I just go, you know it.
Yeah,
I trust
you know what you need in your team.
I've learned now, and I think having a child's really helped to just get less out of the little bits, because I mean, even this morning, Jess was on a call with the team and talking about social, and I try and not be slowing the day on that anymore. And he seems like he's saying, like, oh, I've got an idea, and I've got an idea. I'm like, Jenna, shut up. Do you know, I irritate myself. I'm like, just get away and just stick to what you're doing. And it's so easy to just like get so involved, but you've got to, as you evolve, get out of it, and just trust people to just do it.
Yeah, I'm really trying to do that more and more. It's just so hard. It's like when it's your baby and you're just like,
yeah.
But you know, I feel like which things you do need to say something on, and which things you're like, that like lead people to do their thing. They know what's best, etc. Yeah. What are the biggest hiring mistakes you've made?
Not describing our culture well enough.
Right.
Looking at a CV versus a personality trait. Explaining how I work. You know, I mean, I've hired people, I'm like, God, I can't work with you. You can't work with me. Like, they've come from corporate. I'm crackers to work with. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit all over I'm massively all over the shop. I know where I'm going. Yeah. But like, I'm not, like, I have to be laughing. I can't take things too seriously. When people come in, they're very serious, they're very corporate. They're like, what is this?
And it goes both ways as well. It's like, they're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to enjoy it. It's not just for the company. Yeah. I feel like this is one of the things, I feel like when, kind of very similar, but like, yeah, one I'd say the biggest hiring mistakes I've made is always that like culture fit versus experience level. But also on top of that, it's like, I used to really try and make the company sound as amazing as possible in any of those things, because it's like, please come and join us. Like, we think, you know, and it's someone from this huge company, and you're like, no, please, like, it's going to be amazing. And you think like, wow, they're going to take us to that level. And actually just being like, I would much rather everyone know all of the really good things and all of the really bad things, because chances are, if you like missell something, or you just like really over-egg it because you're so passionate about it, and someone comes in, I'd rather not have that person take the job than them leave in 3 months. Definitely. Like, it kills both of you, and it costs so much to hire, and so much time, and so much resource, and the team gets overstretched. But I feel like I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd known not to just like...
Hiring is the biggest thing that if someone wants to write a book on it, please do, because I will buy it and I'll read it. Like, you just... you either get it right and you get it really right,
Yeah.
or you just get it really, really, really wrong. There's no in between.
I also kind of feel like you have to make a certain amount of the wrong ones to really understand it, because I feel like I tried to listen to like every single podcast about hiring, every single audiobook, like all of these things, and they said all of these things. They said like hire fast, fire fast. They said hire for culture fit and like attitude, not experience, and like all of these things. And I was like, yeah, cool, like writing down the notes, and every single time I'd do the thing that you naturally do, which is hire the person with the bigger names who like feels like really serious, and you need a bit more structure in your company and all of those things. And I kind of feel like you need to be able to go through them, because otherwise you don't really understand why it was a bad idea.
Definitely. And I think panic hiring as well, the amount of times I've panicked hired because I'm like, I'm overstretched, I need that person, and I'm blindsided. I'm literally like, I can see all the negatives in it, but I'm like, I'm desperate.
Yeah.
And then straight away you're like, they're not right.
Yeah. And I feel, we've been kind of scaling this past year, and like for the past 6 months have, I think pretty much doubled headcount. But within that time, there's been so many jobs that have taken like 4 or 5 months to hire. And like, it's so tempting when I'm doing like a final stage interview to just be like, it could work. Like it could, like, chances are it's not going to blow up in flames. So I'm like, and it's so close all the time. And it's like, you know it's not going to work, or there's like a big attitude thing that's like very different from the way the company works. And I feel like with startups as well, you have to have people who take pleasure in mucking in and just like getting stuck in, sorting things out when there are issues, helping, like who believe that a rising tide lifts all boats, who really want to kind of like, they'll see something go wrong and they're like, okay, how can I help? All of these things. And if you have like a part of the organization that doesn't do that and the rest of people do, then it all falls onto the people who do, and then they get more overstretched. And I feel like just not knowing that was actually part of the company rather than like a part of some of the people in there, I feel like it's so important.
Definitely. And I think there's, your people are the hardest thing in business. Do you know what I mean? Because getting it right, and especially when you're scaling, you've just got to get it right. And I think the interview process is so important. And like you're saying, just being so transparent, like, are you willing to pack boxes? If you're not the right company.
Yeah.
And like, we're extreme now. It's like, are you willing to stay till midnight? No one has to stay till midnight. But I ask these questions because I want to make sure that if they're like, oh no, it's like, well, if you're not willing to say yes in an interview, you're definitely not willing to pack a box for 5 minutes.
Because it goes both ways as well. There's like there's rose tinted glasses on both sides, because people want new jobs and you want new hires. So it's like they're looking at it being like, if they think it's, maybe not the right thing, they'll look at it with rose tinted glasses, and then within like 6 months we'll probably be like, actually no, it's not for me. I always very much do try, especially with those roles we found like really hard to place. I'm like, I never want to hire for this person again, and therefore like I will tell you all of the worst parts of this job on the spot. It's like an anti-interview. I remember interviewing for my EA a few years ago, and I just kept like it was such a hard role to hire for because it was like a cross between like an EA and a PA. There was like the business stuff, but also the personal stuff and the influencer stuff and all of this. Like it was all over the place. So like a corporate or like legal EA, maybe not exactly the right thing, but also like a personal PA, probably also not the right thing, because I might need you to prepare a deck or whatever it might be. So I was just finding it so hard to hire for, and it took so long. And I got to the stage where I was like, do you know what? I'm just not going to have one. I'm not going to have one. I can't hire for this anymore. I can't interview a single new person. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And then this like recruitment was calling me up and be like, please interview this person. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm done. I have no interest in this. And then they were like, look, she's done the task. So I don't know about you, but I always set tasks like that are going to be like part of the role. Like, we're going to send them through to you. If you have a free second, just look through them. And I look through them and I'm like, yeah, fine, they're good. But I'm still not interviewing for it. And I'm too like stressed at the moment because I have no assistant, like all of this. And so I was like, I'm not doing it. And then they were like, please just interview her. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll interview her. And it turns out she'd been having the other side too, because she wasn't looking for a job. So they had also been being like, you're perfect for this, please do this. And like, it had kind of been on both sides. And then we had this interview, and I sat down and I was like, these are the 10 worst parts of the job. I was like, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this. And she was like, And then like I offered her the job a week later and she like accepted. She was like, great. She's like, it sounded perfect. I love this type of work. And we've been working together ever since.
Amazing.
And it's like one of those things where it's like, had I sat there and been like, it's so glamorous, you'll get to come on trips with me, like all of these things. It's like, yeah, that's part of it. But there'll also be times where we're having a freak out at fucking 5 a.m. and like something's fallen through and you need to travel across London to like get it done. And like we're all running around like absolute, you know, you're coordinating between Tala and Shreddy and like the, you know, the personal business and like all of those various different things. But I feel like there's such a tendency to like oversell on hiring.
Definitely.
And it's
I love
like
that. I think that's so, yeah, it's definitely so important just to be like, because as well, I think people get so disheartened if they come into a role and it's not the right fit. But I see companies as like your partners in life, your friends in life. Like, how many friends do you have? Like, do you know what I mean? 10 max. People have 10 max probably. People might have more. Partner, you probably have one. People might have more. But that's about 11 people. Think how many businesses there are in the world. Not every business you go in is going to be the perfect fit. And I think it's okay to be like, God, that wasn't for me. And I think people, it crushes them when they go and they're like, can't do the job. It's like, no, it's just probably not the right place for you. And that is absolutely fine. Like, we're finding a connection within business as well as you find a connection within your friends. And if you see it that way, you're actually a bit like, okay, that's okay.
Exactly. Like, there have been, you know, when you see people, when friends, for example, have applied for a job and not got the role, but the way they described it in the thing, you could tell that they were like saying, oh no, but this is really great about it. And you're like, you would hate that. Like, you would hate that. But it's always so disheartening to not get a job. And you always see it in the best way possible, because also usually companies will sell it in the best way possible. But actually just being able to see it as like a two-way street, and like someone's not going to hire you if you're not the right fit for it, and that goes both ways. Like, you don't want to be in something for it's the most draining and like toughest thing on your mental health, being in a job that's like not a good fit for you. So like kind of going both ways. So before we close off, I know that you have a newborn, and while I want to really ask about how that's been with running a business, I also very much see the difficulty with like how many men have sat down and been like, how is it having a newborn with a business? Obviously assuming that the mother is kind of the primary carer, but obviously having a newborn regardless is very difficult, I can imagine. How have you found the experience of having a newborn and then a business?
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. And she is a very good baby. She slept from 2 months. Do you know what I mean? She sleeps from 7 till 7. So like, if she wasn't sleeping, I'd find this a lot difficult because I need my sleep.
Yeah.
She's very chill. I can put her down to play. She can play with herself for an hour. She's a good baby. So that is like my disclaimer. This is not like I've not got a crazy child and I'm doing all this on top. So I've got a good baby. And then I've got support. So she has a nanny. She only does like 2 days a week, the nanny, sometimes a bit more. My mum and dad come down to help a lot as well. So like, I've got support. I definitely couldn't do this without the support because it would be very hard. But no, I love it. And I think I went back a bit too soon, which was probably the biggest thing I would do going forward. But you have to plan if you want to leave. Like, do you know what I mean? So I planned for 2 months, and I planned that perfectly of leaving for 2 months. But then I'd only planned 2 months, so I had to come back after 2 months. And I wasn't back full time, don't get me wrong. But when you're back as a founder.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
was back after a month really in my head anyway. But yeah, I think the 4th month, when she was about 4 months, I think I went back a bit too intensely, and I was like, and I just was like, oh my God, this is so hard. Why am I doing this to myself? And I said, Jenna, just breathe. You're the one that's putting this pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
No one's asking you to do stuff. You're just literally creating more and more work for everyone. Like, what are you actually doing? And I was like, also, you can do this. You're just telling yourself it's hard. And I'm a big believer in like, you are what you think. And I think I could sit here and be like, oh my God, it's the most stressful thing in the world. Or I could just try and rationalize with my head and be like, what works? Do that. And I think I try not to overthink it, because some weeks are hard and I am a bit like, God, what am I doing? And then some weeks I'm like, no, I can do this, but that is life. I'm just doing what works. And I think having that attitude is like what's helping, where I think if I was like, I want to go to all mummy and baby classes, I've been to one, and I'll probably never have time to go back again. I could sit and cry about that, or just this is the life I chose, so I've got to accept it. Like, you've got to have that acceptance, and I think I've accepted that having a business, you'll never have a real mat leave. It doesn't work, but you want this life, you've got to accept that. And that's how I make it okay in my head.
No, I absolutely love that. And it's been, I mean, I follow on Instagram. It's been such a joy to see your kind of journey through it all, and like the business just going from strength to strength. What is the big end goal with Shrine and REFY?
So Shrine, we're about to diversify and really delve into the hair world and go down a very much not super eco, but just reducing waste within hair care. And that's a really exciting project I'm working on. And then for REFY, it's just absolute global domination and just, but just brand first, just being that brand that is just, yes. And then just staying like at the top of branding. That's kind of where we want to push our boundaries now. Just do things where people are like, God, have you seen what they just did?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I want to be.
And is there anything that you haven't ticked off yet that you really want to kind of tick off?
Oh, definitely. Like, we're not even scratching the surface. I'm not like, not even scratching the surface. I'm proud of where it's got to, but I'm like, this is just like the milli steps of where it's about to become.
Oh, well, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. That's been incredibly interesting, and I know people will find it very inspiring. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.